It's discussion time. I love discussion time. People definitely seem to be wanting to talk about super soldiers, particularly in reference to me. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about super soldiers and super soldier programs. The perception is that they create people with extraordinary abilities, correct? So let's talk about it. Military research and what they focus on: improving, which is physical endurance, faster recovery from injuries, cognitive resilience under stress, better situational awareness, improved sleep management, injury prevention, and yes, some human-machine integration through wearable technology. So these efforts obviously inspire lots of conspiracies. And there is publicly documented research that shows that the aim at protecting service members and improving performance within them. And in a general sense, yes, improving performance within their normal human limits. And also enhancing recovery after injury. So their focus on these technologies are for these basic, specific reasons, rather than to create superhuman capabilities. There are advances in neuroscience, rehabilitation medicine, robotics, AI, and wearable technology that have significantly improved outcomes for injured soldiers. Even though they are often portrayed more dramatically and in a science fiction conspiracy manner, there are several technologies and therapies that are being used to help people recover from brain injuries or even nervous system damage. And in reality, the effectiveness of these things, they vary. So it really is dependent on the condition. Every therapy is considered somewhat of a standard care for these soldiers. And some of these technologies are well established, and other technologies still remain kind of in an active research phase. And that's all I can say about those ones. So we can talk about ones that we can talk about. And one of those technologies is called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS. So TMS is a non-invasive treatment, and it uses rapidly changing magnetic fields to stimulate specific areas of the brain. So I don't know if anybody's ever used a TENS unit for, aches and pains, nerve pain, that type of thing. It's very similar. So basically an electromagnetic coil is placed against your scalp, and this produces a magnetic pulse, and that influences the activity of nearby brain cells. And this technology is actually FDA cleared for several different types of conditions, certain forms of depression even. And it's also been studied for a bunch of other things, recovery after traumatic brain injury, or TBI, which is one of its main focuses. Stroke rehabilitation, it's being looked into for chronic pain, for PTSD, obsessive compulsive disorders. Its main focus and use, aside from the research and study into it and what it could be implemented for, is basically cognitive rehabilitation following a neurological injury or brain damage. The research based around this is to try to determine whether it can help strengthen neural pathways through neuroplasticity. So that is the brain's ability to reorganize and form new connections after brain injury or severe illness that affects the brain. And results are very promising in this area of research. This has been something that's been being researched since the 90s, so it's not a new technology. And some patients remain in these active area researches. They've been in them since the beginning. There's also neurofeedback. So neurofeedback is a form of biofeedback, and it teaches individuals to regulate their own brain activity. This is done in sessions. So during a session, a EEG sensor will record the brain activity, and specialized software analyzes the signals in real time. The patient will receive visual or auditory feedback when desired brainwave patterns occur. So, over many sessions, the brain might learn to produce healthier activity patterns. Neurofeedback and the research into it and the studies that are continuing, it's being studied for things like attention disorders, anxiety, PTSD, some mild traumatic brain injury even, sleep disorders, cognitive rehabilitation. So there's a lot of other things that it is being studied and researched for aside from traumatic brain injury. And evidence is still mixed. Some people see meaningful improvements and others don't, depending on the condition. EEG-based cognitive training. An electroencephalogram, or an EEG, records the brain's electrical activity through electrodes placed on the scalp. So in rehabilitation, EEG may be combined with computerized cognitive exercises. And this focuses on improvement of attention, enhancing memory, increasing processing speed, supporting executive functions, and monitor recovery after the brain injury. So they use EEG also as a key component in some brain-computer interface, or BCI, systems, which are being developed to help people with paralysis, communication, or control assistive devices. That's kind of the more newer technology that we're seeing, the EEG and the brain-computer interference, or BCI. But now we'll look at these technologies specific to me. West Nile virus can cause encephalitis in rare cases, which is an inflammation of the brain that can lead to lasting neurological problems. So some survivors of West Nile experience memory difficulties, fatigue, balance problems, muscle weakness, cognitive slowing, peripheral nerve damage, and tremors. So there is no specific antiviral treatment proven to reverse any neurological damage caused by West Nile encephalitis virus. So rehabilitation is primarily focused on supportive care. So generally speaking, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, regular normal cognitive rehabilitation, neuropsychological evaluation, treatment of symptoms such as pain, depression, sleep disturbances, PTSD, those types of things. And obviously the research continues into other therapies that might enhance recovery, such as the ones that we have spoken about. So damage to the peripheral nervous system and treatment for recovery involves a combination of those things. So, the normal physical rehabilitation, occupational therapy, electrical stimulation in selected cases. There's functional electrical stimulation, which is referred to as FES, orthotics, pain management, microsurgical nerve repair, or grafting when it's appropriate. In this area, researchers are also studying nerve regeneration techniques, biomaterials, and stem cell-based approaches, which is another one of those things that gets the people tapping their toes and clapping their hands along with the tune. That sounds sci-fi or conspiratorial. Which brings us to biological and chemical nerve agent exposure. Nerve agents such as Novichok and similar organophosphate compounds interfere with the nervous system. It interferes by disrupting the normal breakdown of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. This causes excessive stimulation of muscles and nerves. So, what first happens is emergency treatment, and that would be rapid decontamination, airway and breathing support, atropine to counteract the excessive acetylcholine effects, pyrrolidoxin, 2-PAM, to reactivate the affected enzymes when it's appropriate, benzodiazepines to control seizures if they occur, which I'm currently still on, and intensive support and care. People who survive severe exposure may require prolonged neurological rehabilitation if they have lasting nerve or brain injury, which I did. So research is ongoing into improving the antidotes and neuroprotective therapies, but there is no treatment that can reliably reverse all neurological damage from severe poisonings. So let's take it back to the military research since the 1990s and the publicly known military-funded research that has been explored, which would be better treatment of traumatic brain injury, so TBI, PTSD therapies, advanced neuroimaging, brain-computer interference, or BCI, cognitive performance under stress, sleep optimization, neuroplasticity and recovery, prosthetic limb control using neural signals, rehabilitation robotics, and human performance monitoring with wearable sensors. And I have to agree that it absolutely sounds very sci-fi and very along the lines of super soldier technology. However, the primary goal has always been to improve survival, recovery, and the long-term duality of life for injured service members, rather than to create super soldiers. The human brain is not a fixed machine. It is a dynamic network of billions of neurons that continually reorganize in response to learning, to injury, and to experience. So when these areas of the brain are damaged, whether by traumatic brain injury, stroke, encephalitis, or exposure to certain neurotoxins, the brain often attempts to, I guess we could say, compensate. So it compensates by strengthening existing pathways or recruiting alternative neural networks. And this process is what is known as neuroplasticity. It allows some individuals to recover abilities that were initially lost. And the recovery is rarely a simple restoration of the original circuitry. Instead, the brain may develop new strategies completely for performing the same tasks. And it does this by sometimes relying on regions that previously played only a minor role. Rehabilitation techniques like cognitive therapy, transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS, neurofeedback, the brain-computer interface research, and intensive skill training. So all these things are designed to encourage this type of adaptive reorganization by repeatedly activating neural circuits involved in learning and recovery. With that said, An injured brain could emerge with a different pattern of strengths and weaknesses than before the injury. This is hard to explain. Okay, so rather than restoring the exact original network that the brain used, it might develop unusual, efficient pathways for specific tasks. It might shift language or memory processing into different neural networks. It could increase reliance on visual thinking instead of verbal reasoning. It could enhance pattern recognition while reducing other cognitive functions. It could strengthen procedural learning while episodic memory remains impaired. The brain is very tricky. So to break this down in easier terms, that would mean not that the brain has become more powerful overall. It would represent a redistribution of cognitive resources. So where some abilities improve, others might remain impaired. Neurology has documented cases in which a brain injury or brain disease has been followed by the emergence of some type of unexpected talent or ability. These cases are uncommon, and they really aren't fully understood. Some basic documented examples of this would include individuals developing remarkable artistic abilities after neurological illness, cases of acquired savant syndrome, which I'm sure you've heard of, in which a individual becomes exceptional in mathematical, musical, artistically, memory abilities that appear after a brain injury or a brain disease. And some people who recover language function. So using different neural pathways than before, they're able to have kind of a savant syndrome in a language aspect, speaking different languages, understanding them, absorbing them in ways a normal brain does not. So what these cases suggest is that the brain has capacities that may sometimes be expressed under unusual circumstances. So although how it happens still remains an active area of research, this is a proven thing that happens. So imagine a patient, like myself, recovering from severe neurological injury. And those rehabilitations and treatment programs included intensive cognitive rehabilitation, TMS, to modulate activity in specific brain regions, neurofeedback to encourage healthier brainwave patterns, EEG guided cognitive training, physical rehabilitation, and some brain-computer interface assisted exercises, added on top of years of structured learning and practice. So, in this scenario, these type of interventions would not unlock hidden abilities directly. Okay? They could create conditions that support extensive neural reorganization. If the brain recruits alternative pathways, and those pathways prove unusually efficient for certain tasks, the individual might demonstrate exceptional performance in a narrow domain while continuing to struggle in other domains. For example, someone like myself might become exceptionally good at recognizing patterns, learning musical structures, or solving certain mathematical problems, become increasingly artistic, and adapt artistic abilities that they did not have. Also experiencing difficulties with other issues, such as attention, maybe speech, areas of memory, or motor coordination, which would be motor skills. From an outsider perspective, such a person could appear to possess abilities that seem extraordinary or like super soldier abilities. These abilities would include possible rapid pattern recognition, exceptional memory in one domain but not another, accelerated learning in highly structured subjects, heightened attention to specific sensory details, superior performance on specialized cognitive tasks. However, keep in mind, these strengths would likely coexist with significant limitations elsewhere. Neurological recovery is generally characterized by trade-offs, not an across-the-board enhancement. So the publicly known neuroscience research that has explored whether rehabilitation technologies can improve recovery, resilience, and performance after an injury. They had goals, and those goals have included faster recovery from the traumatic brain injury, better rehabilitation after strokes, the improved attention and cognitive endurance, enhanced motor learning, reduced symptoms of PTSD and depression, and restoration of lost neurological functions. These efforts have always aimed to restore or optimize function, not to create individuals with superhuman capabilities. That needs to be repeated. While some of these cases show remarkable changes in specific abilities, there is no public evidence that current rehabilitation technologies can intentionally produce those outcomes to create super soldiers. Neuroscience supports the idea that the brain can reorganize in remarkable ways after injury, sometimes leading to unexpected strengths. What remains unsupported is that these treatments, such as TMS or neurofeedback, can deliberately engineer a super soldier intelligence. So, if you want to stay scientifically grounded, which it's very important to stay scientifically grounded in any hypothesis based around this idea, we could put it out as intensive rehabilitation may, in cases like mine, help the brain develop new neural strategies that enhance particular abilities, while those other functions still remain impaired, reflecting the brain's extraordinary capability and capacity to adapt, rather than trying to paint it as a transformation into a uniformly more capable organ or super soldier intelligence. So in regards to myself, I'm not a super soldier. I did not undergo any kind of technology, treatment, or therapies that would transform my brain into intelligence super soldier. But thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time.